We don't need to lift heavy. We don't need to have a certain prescription. We just need to do some sort of resistance training. Bands count, body weights count. You want to do dumbbells, barbells, all of this counts.
Welcome to the Midlife Feast, the podcast that helps you make sense of your body, your health, and menopause in the messy middle of midlife. I'm Dr. Jen Salib-Huber, intuitive eating dietitian and naturopathic doctor, and author of Eat to Thrive During Menopause. Around here, we don't see midlife and menopause as problems to solve, but as invitations to live with more freedom, trust, and joy. Each week, you'll hear real conversations and practical strategies to help you feel like yourself again, eat without guilt, and turn midlife from a season of survival into a season of thriving. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dig in. Misinformation about menopause is one thing. But when it gets mixed in with misinformation about fitness and nutrition and how we should move and what is best, it just gets really messier than maybe it already is. And I hear a lot from women who are trying to find a way to enjoy movement, maybe for the first time, or maybe to enjoy it again after a period of being away. And then they start searching and they get so confused because there are experts everywhere telling them what's best, what they have to do, what doesn't count, and what they shouldn't do. And so they end up just kind of feeling paralyzed. My guest today is Dr. Maria Luque. You may recognize her because she's been on the podcast 2 other times, and I'll link those conversations in the show notes. But she's one of those lovely people in the menopause fitness world who is fighting the good fight. And she wants everyone to feel empowered, to be able to filter through all of the noise that's out there, and at the end of the day, reap the benefits of movement. And we're not just talking about your clothing size. So if you've been confused about what you should and shouldn't do, and maybe have thrown in the towel more than once, you will definitely love this conversation. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast for a third time, which I think there might be only 1 or 2 other people who hold that status.
Yay! It's all I've ever wanted in my life. I'm so excited and honored that you would want me back 3 times. So I'm just excited.
Oh, thank you. Well, in this midlife menopause fitness space, in the nutrition space, the kitchen has been getting very full over the last few years. There's many, many cooks and sous chefs and prep cooks, and everybody wants a piece of that pie, I guess, just to extend the analogy as far as I possibly can. But, in the fitness space, it felt like it had a slower kind of ramp up. But now it really feels like the fitness space is as saturated, and not necessarily in a good way, as the nutrition space, with so many people giving advice, calling themselves experts. And that leads to one of the big problems, I think anyway, is that it creates so much confusion. And so I'm hearing from women all the time, what should I be doing? I saw this person say that I have to do this exercise. I have to lift heavy 4 times a week and hit my 1 rep max. And I have to, and it's just overcomplicating it, right? Am I wrong?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Although I feel like the fitness space has been very crowded for a really long time.
Yeah.
Just different. I think it's a different iteration, especially in the menopause space, because I think what we're seeing is a lot of self-proclaimed something experts, because they're coming up with some fancy names that are clickbaity. And that's really, I think it's part of AI coming in and giving people ideas of what a fancy name could be and expertise, So it sounds really legit. And I think that's where the problem is. People sound legit and they may look what a fitness expert should look like, which, covers another area of problematic, because people tend to see, oh, they look buff, whatever that means, and therefore they must know what they're talking about, versus someone that might not look what the idealized fitness body looks like. And that's always been a problem, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think we see a lot more of that. And that is a problem, because I get the same thing as you do. Women are thoroughly confused. Must I do XYZ? And yesterday I was told that this is, but now, I can't do zone 2 cardio, but then I'm supposed to do zone 2 cardio. But it's that constant keeping you on your toes in the worst way possible. And it's designed to be that way. And so I think when we realize that that is the design of it, to keep us that confused and that frustrated, because then we're more prone to buying something. Because you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, well, I'll just do this,
Right.
not
We just want to
thinking
throw
about,
money at the problem, right? And so it's like
yeah.
we get the impression that if we just throw money at this problem, it's going to be fixed, but it really just adds to the problem because it's more information, not always correct information, and it's not always actionable. Like it's not always something that people can do, maybe because of their level of current fitness, maybe because of their life, maybe because of the equipment they have or don't have or what they have access to. But there's just not a one size fits all solution, right?
Not at all. And which is why women are always feeling like they're failing at something, because we've been told constantly that somehow showing up all the time, and then the consistency part of it all. When we're bringing those two things, I think that it's really at the core of a lot of that negative feeling and frustration when it comes to exercise. We're failing at being able to stick to something that wasn't designed for us. And those two
Mhm.
together create this perfect storm of just paralyzation, I dare to say. Because women then are like, well, I can't, I don't have the willpower. Consistency and willpower. Love, those are two big buzzwords that we love to throw out there. You don't have enough consistency and you don't have enough willpower, because if you really wanted to do it, you could. We all
Right?
have
Because
those
we all have the
hours.
same 24 hour. Ah, I can't believe we were just about to say the same quote. I love that. So yeah, the quote that we all have the same 24 hours makes me want to punch a wall. It
Yeah,
really
yeah.
makes me want to punch a wall because I can't imagine anything less motivating than making someone feel like they're not using their time wisely, right? Because it is so contextual to what else is happening in your life. It is capacity that matters, not what somebody else is doing with the same amount of time. So I would love to give you a little fictionalized story. Let's call it a case study. So I meet with a lot of people. I have the pleasure and the honor of hearing a lot of women's stories. And I've noticed over the years that there's kind of a story that starts like this. So this person has been, let's call her, I don't know, Sally. Let's say Sally. Sally started dieting when she was 12. She got into fitness when she went to university. She was doing all the step classes and she joined her gym, and like her 20s were relatively okay. And then she got married and she had kids, and then things started to just get lifey, right? Life got lifey. She couldn't go to the gym anymore. She was busy, but maybe not as active as she had once been in an intentional way. But, things were okay-ish, but then she hits midlife and perimenopause lands and, shit hits the fan, as it were. And now she's feeling scared because her body is changing. But not only that, she's hearing from everyone, her doctor, her best friend, the internet, that she needs to be thinking about her muscles and her bones and she needs to lift heavy. And she now feels 20 years behind the whole resistance strength training bandwagon. And so she now feels like she has to make up for lost time, but she doesn't know where to start. And so I can't tell you the number of versions of Sally that I hear where they'll say, like, oh, I started this online class, but I hurt myself on the third class. So I had to stop and step back. Or I went to a gym that was boot camp for menopause and it didn't meet them where they were at. There was no kind of personalization. Or maybe they have some kind of injury that really prevents them from maybe lifting heavy weights at all in any capacity. And so now they just feel stuck. And that kind of stuck in the messy middle, that paralyzed feeling of I've fallen behind and I can never catch up. It just, and whether that's food or movement, that version of that story, I feel like the urgency around it is really the problem. And so I would love to hear kind of your take on Sally's story. And if you have a similar Sally in your life.
Yeah, we have lots of Sallys. I think it's the predominant
Mm,
version of midlife, because we are, and again, this is the noise. The reason why women are having these feelings is because we are conditioned to believe that we are not able to make these decisions on our own. And
mm,
so that first it's conditioned. We're conditioned. This isn't the first time that we've been told that our opinion or our knowledge is as valuable as anybody else's. And that is, I think, at the crux of the problem, because women don't feel empowered. I know that's a big buzzword, but I think it describes it well, to trust themselves. Because by now we are in our 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever. We know a lot. Like,
Yeah.
we know a lot. We've already done a lot of trends. We've already been on a lot of wagons, and that we should not have gotten onto, but we went on there. And I think now is the time that when I talk to women that are in this situation, I make them stop. Like, what if we stopped right now to take a breath and take account? Let's take
Mhm.
inventory of what we know, what we don't know and may have to learn, but have a plan. Like, make a plan on what this first step looks like. Because more than often, all of this rush happens because we're feeling almost pressure to take a step. Oh,
Mhm.
I gotta start resistance training tomorrow, because otherwise I will fall apart.
Yeah.
Osteoporosis will happen overnight. I will break a hip, and this is compounded by family history too. What if you have a parent who's broken a hip, or who's then that becomes bigger? What if you have family history of dementia? Now we have all of this
Yeah.
chatter that you must take HRT to prevent it. It's all this stuff that's out there. Um, if we were to put on headphones that kind of silence it all and take a breath, um, that's scary though. It's scary. And that's why most women don't do it, because
Yeah.
kind of going in that deprivation chamber almost. I did this a while ago. I went into a float
Yeah.
deprivation chamber, and it was something else, because there's no sensation. And so I feel that's what's scary. It's the what if I stop? Maybe
Mhm.
you get that. I'm sure you get that as well. Women are afraid to stop, because then what if it all falls apart?
What if it all falls apart? Yeah.
If I need to keep going. I got kids, I got life, I got this, I got. If I stop, how do I get this train to get back on track? What if that track isn't the track you needed to be on to begin with?
Mhm.
That's a question to ask, but that's a big question that most women aren't ready to ask. And we all just need to. I think taking that inventory is that's it. Like, if you take just a little bit of time,
Yeah.
that doesn't cost you anything. That's the other thing. It doesn't cost you $500 for a program that wasn't designed for you. It doesn't. It requires you to have a little courage to have these conversations with yourself, or in a group, or in a community.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you mentioned something earlier about, zone 2 and lifting heavy and all those things. I'd like to dig into maybe kind of some of the I don't want to say that they're all myths because there's always a little bit of truth in all of them. But what do you feel are some of the messages, mainstream messages in the menopause movement fitness world that are contributing to this effect of women feeling like they're failing at exercise or that they can't do it right? What would be some of the big ones?
Well, I think the biggest one is that there is one way that is the right way. That's the biggest one, because that always leads whatever the new thing is that is right, because it changes.
Mhm.
Like any beauty standard, these advices change. It always says this is the exercise du jour, and this one is the one we hate. We cannot not do. So that is number one. That there is one way to do it right.
Right.
The reality is that all movement is good. Science shows over and over and over again, if we just move, we're going to be better off. But I don't think there are any studies that show that if you did CrossFit your entire life, you're going to be better off. That's the only exercise that will count. It doesn't. And I don't think there's anything that shows that you have to stick to one thing. That doesn't exist. I don't have to think about it.
So find
Um,
something that you like.
Yes.
Find something that is accessible, that you can be persistent with instead of
Mhm.
consistent, right? That you can continue to do even when life gets lifey, maybe at a different pace, maybe different lengths of time. And also, I think it has to be something that you enjoy. Like, I really think that if this is something that we're going to be doing forever, and, I do believe that human bodies are meant to move. I think that's part of what we need. But I don't think it has to be CrossFit, but I really think it has to be something we enjoy that's fun.
100%. If it doesn't, you will not be sustainable if you don't actually enjoy doing it. And that's the part that comes with that same discipline part. You just need to be more disciplined to do it. Because the word itself describes that you should be able to do this every single day, which doesn't take into account that, first of all, you don't want to do it. You also will not make time for something that you don't want to do. You will make time if it's something that's really, really powerful for you. Just like women, I hear from women that, took a community class somewhere in some kind of a dance class,
Mhm.
and they will not miss that class. They just
Yeah,
won't. It is a priority, and it is because they love it, not because they get the most cardio exercise, which they do, but they have fun doing it. They have a community doing it. So having these motivators, and again, this is also where it comes into account of finding out what motivates you. Take a little time. This is that inventory. Take a little time.
yeah,
What would make you want to go work out, not work out, move in any way possible? Because all of it counts. And when we take away the restriction, just like with nutrition, do we want to look at the fitness or movement plate and look that we have maybe a sprinkle of all of it if we can, but it doesn't have to be rigid. We do resistance training is incredibly important. We do need to do something that challenges our muscles, not from a looks perspective, because you want to, but it does change how you look as well. But from a functionality perspective, you want
yeah,
to be able to move your body. You want your heart to be healthy. We do need some cardio in there in whatever shape form that comes in. And we
yeah,
want to have some flexibility and mobility in there because these three things are important. Can all these three things be in one? 100%, but most of the time it's a sprinkle here or there, which is
yeah,
why I'm a big fan, and we've talked about this before, of movement snacks. So
yeah.
consider that a sprinkle that you sprinkle in here, sprinkle in there, and it becomes much more doable and sustainable to do all of it because we
Mhm.
don't have to do an hour of each. That's the
It's that
other.
all or nothing thinking, right? That somehow just got programmed into us that we either have to do it 100% or not at all.
Mhm.
And so if we don't feel like we have time to do the full workout, we won't do any of it. When in fact, doing 5 minutes of it still counts, right?
Mhm.
Like if you literally only have 5 minutes to do something, it still counts.
Mhm.
And it helps to make it easier to do next time. I always talk about lowering the bar and about how sometimes we really need to prove to our brain that not only does that lower bar count, but that every time we practice lowering the bar, it actually gets easier to raise the bar. So like it's if I can easily get out for 5 minutes, then going out for 10 minutes becomes even easier. But if I wait until I feel like I have the motivation for 10 minutes, I'll have lost all the opportunities for those 5 minutes to count, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll take it another step forward and I'll say, why do we not throw away the bar? It did.
Yeah.
So we don't have to lower and raise it because if what if we take every day on its own merit? Having a plan is great, but taking, especially where we are in midlife now, if we took every day on as its own entity and taking account, starting the day, taking account where we are from a physical, mental perspective, because it changes. We know it can change from one day to the next of how able we are doing things. If we didn't sleep last night, you're not going to probably get up and do that workout that you really were planning to and maybe looking forward to. But if you don't have it in you, so if we take away an expectation,
Mhm.
then it becomes a lot easier to just do
Absolutely.
and to just be. You know what? I think obviously we know nutrition and exercise go really hand in hand from a mindset perspective. We have very alike when we how we work with our clients. When you're talking about intuitive eating and you tell people, well, you just have to listen to your body. We do this Same thing in the fitness world, right? And this is one of those big advice things that people throw out there. Just listen to your body. And women are thoroughly confused of what that is, but we expect them then to know. It's just like, what, do you not know how to listen to your body? What's wrong with you? And there comes another layer of failure and
Mm-hmm.
what is it? And so these two things, how do you do it in nutrition? It's the same way you would do it in exercise of reconnecting.
Yeah.
Where's the cue? What does it mean? And
So I
getting
have
to
a
learn
question
how to do that.
that's a bit of a devil's advocate because I often will, when I'm trying to talk about this idea of lowering the bar, and I actually love getting rid of the bar, but people say, "Yeah, I'd be fine with doing 5 minutes, but I have so little time that I would just want it to count. So if I don't have 20 minutes, then I'm not going to do it because of the belief that 5 minutes doesn't count." So that's like a mindset
Mhm.
issue, and I would love to hear how you talk to your clients about that because I'm sure that you get that too.
Yes, I think we have to work on telling them that science is very pretty clear that it's cumulative. It is all of it counts in a whatever. If we look at a 24-hour period or whatever
Mhm.
period you want to look at, it isn't that you did an hour in between 2 and 3 o'clock. It's you did an hour in the whole day. Do we have more benefit from a longer period of cardio for your heart? And yes, but again, this is when you can do it. But if you can't do it, those 5 minutes, we know that they count. They count, and that is really a let's make it count. And I think one not trick, but like a piece of advice that I always say, what if we celebrated all of that? What if you did those 5 minutes that you didn't do yesterday? Celebrate
Mhm.
it. I know it sounds silly, and for most
No.
people it does. Like, why would I celebrate 5 minutes? It's because yesterday you didn't do it, and today you did. So that is a celebration. Woohoo! This is
Yeah.
why I started doing bingo cards of
Yeah.
having I don't know. I like, how fun is it to have that bingo marker to go, did it, or whatever your version of it is. But you can look, a physical representation sometimes can help say, I did all of that. That's why, some people do I want to do 100 squats in the week, and they have lines and they write down, I did 10 today and 10 whatever. And then at the end, you see that accomplishment. So adding some sort of celebration or accomplishment to every single little, even a lunch that you weren't able to do or you didn't do yesterday to the bathroom. Boom.
Yeah.
That's something you did. And it becomes easier, as you said. It just becomes easier to be like, oh, wow. Okay. That's
I
great.
love
I
that.
love it.
We
Yeah.
I often will encourage people to use a habit tracker, but only just the check mark and to give themselves credit for showing up.
Mhm.
That is what we're celebrating, that you showed up, not that you did it for 1 minute or that you did it for 10 or whatever. And yeah, I think that celebrating, no matter how small, the effort, and noticing how that makes you feel, right?
Mhm.
Like, doesn't it feel better and doesn't it build more self-efficacy and positive emotions towards yourself if you celebrate the little things than if you punish yourself for not doing anything or something? You know, but it's a hard sell. So I hope that anybody who's listening now hears that Maria agrees with me that it all counts.
It does. And, again, this kind of goes back to figuring out what it is that motivates you too, because we are all so different. Someone might be motivated by a colorful bingo card. Someone might be motivated by a spreadsheet because then they can pull some kind of a chart, and because that's what they need to see. Some people might like something else. Figure out what would make it. If you need an app, use the app. If you need something, figure out what it is that you would want to have as a representation of you doing it. Could it be an accountability partner? And I hate the word accountability partner, but I don't know. I don't know what we would call it. A buddy that you can text and say, did it, because it feels good, because you have this drive to want to share it with someone else or feel like you have to share it with someone else. There's nothing negative with needing accountability. If that is your motivator, then that is your motivator, because eventually I think eventually it becomes, in the beginning we need these what is it? And then it becomes a habit. I mean,
For
that's
sure. I
ideally.
talk about, like, we need to figure out our why all the time.
Mhm,
And if you
mhm.
don't have an internal or intrinsic reason to want to do something, then it's very hard to maintain long term. Extrinsic things like bingo cards and star charts and those kinds of things, they can be great in the short term. So they can be a really valuable tool. But if you have not figured your shit out and your why by the time that bingo card has run out or the star chart, it's going to lose its novelty and you're going to be like, I did that. Right. But if you're like, oh, I did that and I'm feeling stronger, it's easier for me to go up and down the stairs. I have more energy. I'm sleeping better. My mood is better. Then you've got a why to keep going, even if you're not getting a sticker.
Yeah.
And so, the accountability, I think, can be really helpful, especially in the beginning when you're trying something new, as long as it doesn't become the punishment of
Yeah.
like, oh, I didn't do it and I feel so down on myself. I think that is so much of the getting back to like what's failing women in the fitness world. It's this all or nothing. You've got to be perfect. You've got to do it this way. Otherwise, what's the point? You know?
No, I was going to say, and also it's because the messaging is always that it doesn't have to feel good. Like
Mhm.
exercise isn't something that necessarily has discomfort, that no pain, no gain has just been reworded. And we're using other language now to describe that you don't necessarily have to like it. It's just going to be effective, though,
Yeah.
right? It's one doesn't have to do the other. If you want results, then you should push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, which maybe a little out of the comfort zone is fine, but not repeatedly doing something that you don't like to do. So that
Yeah.
messaging is still super toxic.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the strength training myths because we hear a lot of you've got to go to the gym, you've got to lift really heavy, and nothing else counts.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, now, and we have, I love that actually, recently ACSM came out with their new guidelines, which is um, really encouraging because we need to see more of this, where the science is pretty clear that we don't need to lift heavy. We don't need to have a certain prescription. We just need to do some sort of resistance training. Bands count, body weights count. You want to do dumbbells, barbells, all of this counts. And it becomes a very individual part. Another great part is that rest is being acknowledged. We need to have those rest periods as well. But from a resistance training perspective, it is a free for all. You can do it in any shape, way, or form that you want, that will make you want to do it. And it doesn't have to be a certain amount of repetitions either. It's higher repetitions works, lower repetition works. It is what will motivate you to do it. Can one develop into the other? For sure. And I've seen that a lot where I see women, I don't know, they're intimidated by the heavy lifting, but then they start with a higher count, lower weight, and then they feel this feels kind of good. Like I want to be stronger. They want to see that weight increase, and not to say that you're going to turn into a power lifter, but it is very encouraging to know that you can do it in any range, in any form, as long as you are progressing on the weight and that you are challenging your muscles. That's another thing, because we don't want to do 100 repetitions because that's not enough stimulus for your muscle. But
Yeah.
within any range, I love that came out.
I do too. And, I think that it was really reassuring on the practitioner side of things that we really can, and I don't do fitness training, obviously, but in the broad spectrum of people who work with women in midlife, that there's so much flexibility to meet people where they're at. And not just where they're at fitness wise, but in life. What's their capacity? What do they have access to? What do they want? What do they find fun, interesting? I have built up like a home gym over the years in my very little, relatively small Dutch little space where I am. And I've been able to just kind of continue to build the resistance. And so I think that people think that the gym is the only option to build strength. And that is definitely not the case. I love the videos that you show in your garage and using your daughter as a weight. And if you have children, you can use them too. But I think that this really helps to broaden the scope of how we make fitness goals, because fitness, much like nutrition, is playing the long game of health, right? This isn't something that we're going to cash in that return on the investment in a week or two. We'll notice improvements along the way in how we feel, but really what we're looking for here, at least I am anyway, is I want to be able to get up off the toilet when I'm 80. And, so I'm not going to see the return on that for a while. So, how do you help women kind of, or what advice do you have for someone who maybe has only ever made goals around a 12-week body shred and to fit into a certain clothing size, and then they just stop. They do the thing and then they stop. And now they're maybe trying to learn that new relationship.
Yes, I think all of these are great. I love this. The number one question that you had earlier, I always go back to the why. That
Mhm.
isn't set a goal that is not dependent on body size. So
Yeah.
if a weight goal, we can have the weight goal, but that I want at least two other goals on top of that that you need to think about. And that reframes how women are showing up just by setting a goal that isn't related to weight loss. It does change because now we're talking about I want to be able to play with my daughter. I want to be able to lift her, or my puppy
Mhm.
that is constantly growing. I don't know how heavy she will get, but I want to be able to lift her in the car when she's old. I want to be able to continue gardening forever and lift my own garden soil. Like these
Yeah.
life goals that are functional in life change how we think, and then it becomes. And I am actually not, I don't discourage people from joining a gym, but if you are hesitant to join a big gym, I always encourage people to just start where you are and don't buy a bunch of equipment. Let's start with body weight and start where you are here, and then your equipment grows with you. Like you said, most women that I've worked with over the years started with nothing, and now they have a nice little setup in their office or in their they made a
Mhm.
little room and some nook somewhere in the house, and that becomes their thing. But it is a one dumbbell. They bought one set of dumbbells, then they bought another set, and that is also very encouraging. So starting with squats, if you have not done any squats, how
Yeah.
about we get to a point where you can do a certain amount without being uncomfortable? The same with, doing some kind of a desk push-up or something. So these kinds of things that you are not able to do. And then we move on, and being comfortable with saying that the progress is small because the goals are in the future, long in the future, hopefully where they really pay out, where we
Yeah.
are independently living. And I know that I'm not about you need all those 20-year-old goals, 20-year goals in the future. But how do we start tomorrow? If you were ready to start tomorrow with what you have, what does that look like? And that
Yeah.
clears the plate a little bit. It's the same as if you were to say, I'm not going to buy groceries and I'm going to make a meal with whatever's in my fridge and my pantry.
Yeah.
And you get creative. The same with exercise. If you don't have access to anything, how do I make a workout with nothing?
Yeah. And I
And
think that that's the thing too. Like workouts can be, really can be anything. That they can involve equipment, but they don't have to involve equipment. And I think gardening and yard work is one at this time of year where we're recording this in the spring that a lot of people are reminded just how much of a workout that can be. And it's fun and they enjoy it. And then if they connect the dots between like movement isn't going to a gym, movement is moving your body in ways that you enjoy as often as you can, it becomes so much more accessible. There's no one right way to move.
Yeah, and it helps. So if you're a dancer and you want to dance until you're 100 years old, you continue dancing, but you might consider then what will give me the strength or the stamina or whatever it is to continue dancing. I've had clients that come to me and they're in their 80s and say, I want to continue playing golf, but I know that I need some additional something to do it. So we design programs around them being able to play golf until they no
I love
longer
it.
here. So that goal, what do you want resistance training to help you achieve in your life? Not necessarily just for your body, but for what you want to continue doing. And that reframing most of the time really does the trick.
So speaking of moves, you have a new move that is coming out soon. So why don't you tell us about it?
Yes, I have a book coming out. Actually, it's hot off the presses. It's being shipped to me right now, and I'm very excited to share it. It is a book called New Moves in Menopause. It is a fearless guide to stay stronger, healthier, and saner in midlife. And the way I always describe this book is, and why I wrote it, is all of the things we talked about today. It is, I want women to find themselves and then create a map. And we are going to do an actual map in this book for the next short-term, long-term, forever terms in movement and reconnecting with your body. So it is an adventure. I'm guiding women on an adventure to take inventory, to figure out who they were, who they are, and what they want to take from the past into the future, into the present. And we're going to cut out things. We're going to glue things. It's a very tactile approach. You were kind enough to read it. So from a perspective of the reader, I'm sure you can say something. But I want women to have fun. This book is all about having fun with yourself, taking that time that I was talking about earlier of sitting down and saying, okay, who am I and what do I want? From a body image perspective, from a exercise perspective, and then you were gracious enough to give some nutrition advice as well. So you'll find that in the book as well.
Yes, and I had the honor and pleasure of reading it. And it really, I think, is going to be, it's going to be a great book. It is a great book, and it's a much needed resource. And so for anybody, especially who's looking for a weight neutral, body positive book about fitness, those are hard to find. And you do such a great job of incorporating all of that. But most importantly, I think your personality comes through in the book, which is always great, because as I was reading it, I could just picture your voice. And now that people have listened to this podcast, they know what your voice sounds like. So congratulations. I can't wait for it to be in people's hands.
Me too. And I can't wait to see people's maps. So I really, if you're hopefully you're buying the book and you are creating your map. I know you can't visualize it, but you will be creating a map. I want to see everyone's maps. Hopefully we can get lots of maps out there.
That is so fun. So before we part, and we're going to have links in the show notes to all the things, but before we part, what do you think is the missing ingredient in midlife?
You as like the person, like, like ourselves. That's what's missing.
Gosh,
It's that ingredient, because we are, like you said, always outsourcing expertise. And I want women to put the expert hat on themselves and say, yes, I've graduated that school and I'm here. Trust yourself.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Midlife Feast. If you're ready to take the next step towards thriving in midlife, head to menopausenutritionist.ca to learn more about my one-to-one and group coaching programs, free resources, and where to get your copy of Eat to Thrive during menopause. And if you've loved today's conversation and found it helpful, please share it with a friend who needs to hear this, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps so many more people just like you find their way to food freedom and midlife confidence. Until next time, remember, midlife is not the end of the story, it's the feast. Let's savor it together.